let's talk about Adventure Time. Adventure Time is another one of my favorite cartoons that starts off really lighthearted and silly, but reveals a deeper, darker story as the series progresses. I've also used a specific episode from Adventure Time in at least one or two conversations in the past regarding Christianity. That episode in question is titled The Silent King. In Adventure Time, Season 2, Episode 14, titled The Silent King, Finn becomes the unwilling ruler of the Goblin Kingdom after defeating their previous tyrannical leader named Zergiok. Finn tells the goblins that they are free to rule themselves, but without a king, things quickly descend into chaos. They literally have a collective panic attack in which they begin to do all kinds of bad stuff to each other. They cannot rule on their own, apparently, and insist that Finn becomes their king. However, once he ascends the throne, he discovers that their laws are absurdly nonsensical and strict, requiring the king to do things like sit silently on the throne all day long. He can't brush his own teeth. He can't chew his own food. He can't even talk to the goblin people directly to make any kind of decrees or announcements. Everything has to be done via one of his many goblin staff. Finn tries to bring change by encouraging the goblins to think for themselves and make their own decisions. However, he faces resistance from goblin tradition and bureaucracy. Gummy here is vassal of sorts or advisor. Is constantly bringing out the rule book and letting Finn know what he can and can't do. Is mostly full of what he can't do. So, needless to say, Finn is miserable in this role. Eventually, Zergiok returns and tries to retake the kingdom. Finn, not wanting to sit around while his goblin knights and soldiers go and fight the battle, he decides to disguise himself and places a dummy on the throne in his stead. This dummy specifically, or Gollum, I'm not sure what he is. We do know that his name is Silent Dan, and as the name implies, he does not really say or do anything. So Finn places a box on his head, sits him on the throne, and goes to fight Zergiok. While he is gone, none of the goblins notice that he's been replaced and take to this new king seamlessly. Gummy here even sits on the Silent King's lap and expresses the comfort he feels in the king's presence. When Finn returns from battle, he sees that the goblins found their ideal king, and he decides to just go home. This scene in particular, Finn, after defeating Zergiok in disguise, is presented to the king as a brave warrior, and while all the goblins are waiting for the king to address Finn, the little goblin next to him raises the king's arm, and they all cheer. So Finn sees that, and he's like, you know what, they found what they were looking for, and he decides to go home. This episode makes me think about how Christians relate to their God. Outside of the stories in the Bible, God never speaks or acts for himself. With the exception of natural disasters that are attributed to him, all of his goodness and wrath are enacted by human beings. God is essentially Silent Dan. He is a doll that Christians imbue with life. He fits whatever role they need by just simply existing. Just the very thought that there is a God watching over them is enough solace to get them through their day. Never mind his silence, because they claim to hear him. Never mind his inaction, because they claim that he moves all the time. The God concept aligns almost perfectly with what we see in the Silent King, with the one exception being that the goblins can see their king right in front of them. And you have to think that they are aware at some level that they're doing everything for the king, including moving his body for him. They've accepted their mass delusion and are ruling themselves, with the king acting as an avatar for their newfound independence. In the beginning of the episode, the thought of them ruling themselves literally threw them into a panic. But with this king that they have here, they are enacting their independence through him. Because again, the king can't do anything. All of his people have to do the things for him. So yeah, in essence, they are ruling themselves. They just didn't realize it. It's almost like how children have a security blanket. The blanket doesn't need necessarily do anything, but just having it around is a source of comfort. And likewise, having God around for Christians is a source of comfort. Never mind the fact that God isn't really doing anything, nothing tangible that anyone else can see. Never mind the fact that it's people going around doing all of the charities, building schools, building churches, passing out food and clothes, taking donations to give to the, those who are in need. Never mind all that. They have a God avatar that they work through, that they utilize to get these things done, all these blessings that they find. Again, also very much like a child with their security blanket. They need it for encouragement, but the object itself doesn't really do anything. The main difference being, though, is for children, they grow out of their need for blankets. They grow out of their need for imaginary friends. But that never happens for believers.